Good morning. Today I am here in our newest office location in Dartmouth, Massachusetts, in a beautiful village called Paden with the experts of this area. This is the first time I think I've traveled to do a podcast, so I'm so thrilled to be here, and it's a beautiful day. So what I would love to do, this is Team MCM, which is our team that's based out of this office. Our first time meeting, I think three of us today. And so I wanted to let you guys introduce yourselves, Maggie, Chris, and Margo.
I'm Maggie Tomkiewicz, and I have been working in this village for 30 years and part of a team. We've been a team together for 5 years. Very exciting.
Oh, awesome.
Yes.
And I'm Chris Hiller. I was born and raised here. So Dartmouth has been my home my entire life. It's what I know. Have a special connection to the bay and the water. So that's a good resource for all of that.
Cool.
And I'm Margo Choquette, and I am originally from Rhode Island, moved to New Orleans for 30 years,
oh, wow.
and came back about 5 years ago, and still pinch myself that I'm here in Paden.
I bet. It really is incredible.
It is.
So I'm excited to dive into more about the area because truly I'm learning about it as someone that really wants to always be on the coast. This is something that I'm excited just to hear about this area from the standpoint of a buyer that might be looking. And then a little bit more about your team dynamic. So I don't know if we could start with that. Just, you guys seem like such a great group of people and every team works so differently. So maybe walk me through what your roles are and like how that dynamic is for clients.
So yeah, I do think that we are unique in the sense that we work seamlessly together. It's not one going in one direction, another in another. We work together. Mm-hmm. We're here in this office together. We're in town and driving by, you would see we have been here. We work, every day, just about, but together, everything we do is collaborative, equal voices. Everyone is heard. There's no one dominating. We come with different skill sets. But we are truly a team. If you initially meet me for a transaction or something, you will quickly meet Margo and Chris. And they, if I'm tied up or for conflict or something, you could work with any of us and they can jump in because they'll know everything that's going on.
Right.
Yeah, I think, each one of us at any given point knows every single transaction that's going on, every buyer, every seller. We all have a hand in each one of those.
And we may handle different portions of that transaction, but we know what's going on with every portion of it. So
that's a cool model. There's so many different models. I think it's also interesting. You guys all seem like the core you're really similar, but you probably have different people that you might click with. Like, I think that's a really nice piece when you have a team like this where some people might jive a little better with one of you, and then you can kind of run point. And that's just how this business is so personal. I'm sure if you have something in common with someone, it might make sense for you to kind of run point on that. And I love that model that way.
One of our big things here that we always go back to is, we each play to our strengths. And if there's a situation where, if it's someone that I'm maybe more primarily working with, but there's a question that comes up that I know Maggie is much better versed in, there are no egos to be playing with. It's hang on, what, I could get that answer for you, but here's a source that can explain it right from the get-go, and here you go.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Awesome. So you've all obviously been here for some time and have a history here. I have to ask because I feel like there has been a shift since the pandemic in this market. What has that looked like over the last couple of years?
Initially, as COVID hit, we shut down for 2 weeks. But as soon as the governor opened things up for us and made us essential, it just exploded. We were showing. And so what happened was inventory, in some of our summer communities or waterfront communities could take a couple years maybe to sell, finding the right match of person. We sold like 4 in one particular community from April to May. You know what I mean? So the inventory went quickly.
Which previously, which would have taken to get those 4 turned over. I mean, it would have taken years. And that happened in.
And we had some of them for a couple of years already. And Maggie said, they're all going to go this year. And I thought, really? me? And they all went.
Within a
6 months, really.
I was going to say, I think even potentially less than that. I mean, I think within a matter of 2 to 3 months, maybe they hadn't closed yet, but they were all under contract.
And that's continued, really held strong.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
And it's,
sure.
and especially in some of those specific communities. I mean, arguably most of this area, if something comes on, it doesn't last more than, if it's on for a little bit of time, it's a couple weeks. And I think that you can see that kind of pretty much almost anywhere else as well. But I think there was a huge drive of people coming down initially out of the city. People who were kind of cooped up, whether it's, in condos or apartments or even, in some of the suburbs. You're a little bit more on top of your neighbors there. And, people were moving down here because you can get a little bit more space.
Sure.
Or you might have a neighbor who had a summer house down here and could just escape from the city. And, initially when COVID first started, I mean, social distancing and keeping away from everyone is what everyone wanted to do.
Right.
We saw that coming from people coming from Boston. We saw it from New York and Connecticut. Obviously, those license plates are easier to pick out, a little bit more obvious, but, people were kind of gravitating here either from friends or family that they knew or had discovered it through one way or the other.
That was going to be my next question. You sort of got to it. It's just like, what does this buyer look like? What's the demographic that's flocking here?
Oh, I think there's a wide range. We have people, and we've had this for all along. People looking who maybe will buy their retirement home. So it will be their second home for a while until they hit that retirement time, and that this will be then their primary.
Yeah.
We've had younger families who were in the city and then now discovered that maybe remote working is not going to go away, and that they can do, 3 days at home, 2 days traveling. That makes that commute that much easier. So we see that. We still have the second home buyers.
Sure.
As well, just so that people have another place to go. I think one of the most attractive things for this area for people as COVID hit was that they could drive, right? So when you couldn't get on a plane,
right?
They could drive.
Couldn't get on a plane or didn't want to get on a plane, for whatever.
Right. Exactly. And so I think as people started to think about that, it's like, how am I going to not be in this situation again, where now my European vacation is gone because I can't, and what am I going to do? And camp, it's probably not going to happen for the kids. And so, being able to come here has made it kind of a combination of everything. It's a vacation, staycation, camp for the kids.
And a lot of people have wanted to come down here to really have their magnet home for their kids. Even if they're retiring, they think, where's a place where my kids are going to come back? And my grandkids are going to come back. And so they choose that for that purpose too. So downsizing as well as
the attraction.
Keeping that family close.
Sure, I love that. Yeah.
Destination for that.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think it seems like it's been honestly like the best kept secret. But a secret might be out.
Well, and it's funny because you say that, and everyone has been saying that for the last 25, 30 plus years, and it's, people will continue to say, oh, well, I think it's getting out. I think people are figuring it out. But somehow it still remains, under somewhat of wraps here.
Some of the reason too why it keeps its charm is the DNRT here, the Dartmouth Natural Resource Trust. And they have over just under 5,000 acres of preserved land, full of walking trails. And, they're protecting the land so it can't get overbuilt. Sure. And so, we're going to retain a lot of that charm and that openness,
which is so important. Yeah.
So. And it kind of keeps that original feeling, so it's not going to get overgrown. You look at different areas, coastal areas. And obviously, I think, you can apply that no matter if it's here or in Massachusetts, outside of Massachusetts, the coast is always going to be a draw for people. And so to be able to kind of maintain that original integrity of this area is super critical. And they do a wonderful job between all of the conservation groups that are involved.
And I'm always keeping an eye on opportunities. And I feel like you already touched on it, but I think it's so interesting. We talked about this a little bit before, but this might have been a little far. A lot of people want to be on the coast. Even people that don't really boat, like it's just a thing. They want to be on the coast. And this area, I feel like, was a little too far for someone that's commuting 9 to 5 every single day into Boston. It might wear on you. And I think that shift, I'm like that opportunity now, like you had mentioned, I just think it's such a huge deal for people that might be only doing 2 days a week or completely remote to be able to be somewhere like this. Like you said, you can, what you can get here and to be.
For your money, right.
Well,
yeah.
That's exactly it. And I think, a lot of the people who are living in the city for all the right reasons that they were living in the city, for restaurants and just exposure and things to do, who were either renting or hopefully at some point buying, the price tag, there, if you had $1.5 million or $2 million to spend, for example, that will get you somewhere.
Yeah.
But that seems much more average, obviously depending on where you're looking and all of that. But, if you take that budget and apply it down here, and if you have that flexibility, which a lot of people now do, $1.5 million or $2 million can get you significant water views, potentially waterfront,
Right.
And gives you that option. So instead of being there and, looking for that primary home, either in the city or just outside of the city, I think people are starting to be able to have that primary home here. And if they're going back up and having to go into the office a little bit more, whether it's 2 days a week, 3 days a week, getting that smaller apartment there that they can have for the, a couple of those weekdays if they need it. We're seeing some of that happening too.
And I think for people who don't know where we are, we're just a little over an hour from Boston and about 45 minutes from Providence.
I was just going to ask what the proximity is to Providence.
Yeah. And so the airport's there as well. So you've got the Green Airport in Rhode Island.
Yeah.
So you've got that. In addition to that, we have the train coming to New Bedford and Fall River.
You do?
End
I
of
was
this
just
year.
going to ask. That's amazing.
My entire life they've been talking about it, but it is the stations have been built, the tracks have been moving forward. They should be, they're scheduled to be running the end of this year, November,
That's
I think.
fantastic. Yeah, because the train is a dream. I love taking the train. And so I'd love to walk through, we have these nice maps here, but I'd love to understand, just for the people listening, what exactly are the towns in the South Coast? And with that, like where might be a good opportunity for a first-time home buyer coming out this way from the city, if there is one. But I'd love to just sort of highlight the towns.
Really? I think anywhere. First-time home buyer could go anywhere from, we will go to as far as Little Compton and Tiverton, Rhode Island.
Okay.
And then it's Westport, Dartmouth, New Bedford, Fairhaven, Mattapoisett, Marion,
Okay.
and Wareham. We'll go to Wareham too. So that's a nice little stretch. But
It's more than a little stretch. I mean, it is a significant stretch.
And in each of those towns, you could find a first-time buyer could find a home.
So the opportunities are really everywhere.
do, yes.
That's great.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that there's such a wide range of different pockets and feelings, and depending on what you're looking for. And, there's such a range, whether, you're talking about a first-time home buyer or someone who might be even looking for a second home. And depending on what you're looking for that, there are so many different options that exist. Whether it's going from, a small cottage kind of feeling to kind of a
more stately accommodation like Round Hill. We have 8 waterfront communities here in Dartmouth, and each of them have a different personality, and Maggie always delights in taking people around, and we all do it just to see their reaction. And sometimes you go into one community and they just light up. It's just their place.
Sure.
Where we may have thought they might have liked a different feel. So we're surprised and they're surprised, just from going through the different communities and seeing everything they have to offer. So any personality,
That's funny.
and
we can accommodate.
we like to call that the magical mystery tour,
Sure.
because, you start out here and, even just, for example, in South Dartmouth here, that's about a 2.5 to 3 hour drive, going between all of the communities. And, sometimes when you're meeting someone, you get an idea of what they might like. And usually we're pretty on target with that. But every once in a while, you'll be driving through and you just see people just light up, and, their whole demeanor changes. They're like, this is where we want to be. Like, this is it. Yeah. And when you see that, it is such a, not overwhelming feeling, but such a wonderful feeling to see people's reactions, and it's special.
It's exciting. I mean, again, because as I said, I've been doing this for a number of years. But when you are exploring the area with somebody brand new and you see it through there, it's exciting to you, and you really appreciate where you get to live and work every day. When you see it from someone else's perspective in their eyes and they get so excited about this place, it fills you back up all the time.
Totally, because I think, living here, not that we ever take it for granted, but, sometimes that can happen. And so, having that kind of constant reminder of why this area is so special, it's wonderful.
I was just saying, having lived in the South for, 30 plus years, and coming back, I didn't realize how much I missed the seasons, the cold, the snow. I mean, I love it. And if it's over 80 degrees now, I'm not so happy. I like it cold. And so I feel like there's such locals here, and I feel like I'm almost seeing it for the first time, really. And so I think I bring that excitement. Like I said, I still pinch myself that in this beautiful village.
It is stunning. I mean, the village I love, and I'm a little bit of a stereotype for me, which I think you find a lot of people like this, especially coming from the city. That downtown is really all you need. You need something, ideally walkable, for me personally, but the coffee shop, a couple of restaurants, a few stores, something to feel like you have a little bit of a hub. So that's definitely a draw here. I love this village.
And it's kind of all year long too. It's not just the summer. I mean, some of the shops may close for a month or two and then restock.
Yeah, they're restocking.
Farm and Coast, Scuttlebutt, the Sail Loft, Little Moss. Those places are always open. So there's always a little activity. Even in the cold. They try to have fun events like wine tastings, beer tastings, but they try to get people out.
And that kind of stuff. Yeah.
We have the Christmas festival, and there's a summer festival. So,
and I don't know if you've ever been here. Well, you may have never been here, but at Christmas time, they put lights on all the buildings, and you drive down Elm Street or come across the bridge, which has now started to get lit, or at least partially. And you drive into town, and it kind of feels like you're driving into a bit of a fairy tale.
Yeah. We actually spent the first time I was introduced here a couple years ago, my now husband had bought a used sailboat. I always joke, older than me. It was a labor of love, and it was up, not in the water in Mattapoisett through a winter. And we came here in the winter from the city. I think it was the year before the pandemic, but like every weekend, that was like what we were doing. We would drive down, like we'd always take a ride around, and it was stunning. It is stunning. And that was my first sort of rodeo with this area, and just so surprised that it was here. But with that, and we touched a little bit on the summer, and we're getting the lay of the land of where we are. I was curious because I know personally that like this is the ideal spot for boating, specifically sailing, if someone has an interest in sailing, because obviously we know you can't do anything quickly when you're sailing, and it's really nice to be in a place where you can have those destinations. I know that's something you know a lot about. Can you give us the lay of the land where we are on the water for anyone that's thinking about the summers here?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Padenham Harbor is a pretty unique location for a lot of different reasons. There are over 1,200 moorings just in the harbor alone. So, in the summertime, it gets pretty packed, which is great to see. But from here, you can go pretty much anywhere relatively easily. The typical wind, so if you're talking about sailing, is a southwest breeze, which fills in pretty much guaranteed almost every afternoon. So that's never really a question, unlike some other areas where, you might question, are we going to have any wind today or this week?
Yeah.
But, you can get pretty much anywhere from here, whether you're going across the islands or Cuttyhunk. It's a straight shot across from here.
Block Island, Newport.
Yeah, you basically hang a right out of the harbor here, and you head right to Newport or Block. You can get to the Vineyard, Nantucket, the Cape very easily, Woods Hole, but the way we are positioned kind of close to the entrance of the bay allows anyone to get pretty much wherever they need to without having to travel extra just to do that.
Yeah, which if you don't sail or boat, that might not matter to you, but if you do, like it really is a huge difference, especially if you're a family that wants to be in this area and is going to have to do things on the weekends specifically and short trips like that, because it really adds up the time that it will take to get somewhere that's not as convenient. So I think that's a huge attribute.
Absolutely. And I think, Maggie, weren't you working with a client at one point who ended up honing in on this area just because of its location, because of where they could get to with their boat?
Yeah, he's a big sailor coming from Pennsylvania. Originally grew up in Rhode Island in Portsmouth. And when he brought his family of 7 back here, he specifically said that because this is where we want to be, because we can get on the boat and go in either direction, whether we go east or west.
Yeah.
We have a great destination and it's not forever.
Right. That's
So,
amazing.
yeah.
Very cool. So one more clarity around where we are, I think, is important. And I only know how to apply my own experience to this. But so I currently now live on the South Shore. So I was one of those from the South End in Boston to the South Shore. The South Shore is like Hingham, Cohasset. You think of those areas, Duxbury. I think some people are confused about the South Coast and the South Shore. So I would love to sort of, if anybody wants to clarify that just on the record here.
You know, we've pointed out that, we are an hour's drive from Boston, in 45 from Providence. And, if you I always tell people, if you think about Newport and you just keep going east, along the water, and you sort of picture that, like you're heading to Cape Cod, but you're doing it along the water.
Right.
That's the South Shore.
Yeah.
The South Coast.
Right. There is a difference.
Yeah, there is a difference. That is the South Coast. And that's, it's just kind of, where we are. And it's funny because our towns, Dartmouth and Westport, again, having advertised, years ago, like in the Wall Street Journal, New York Times, and you put Westport in there, and even though it's under Massachusetts, they would call thinking it's Westport, Connecticut.
Sure.
Or Dartmouth, they're thinking it's New Hampshire. Unless they've had a specific reason to come here, either the university or someone from sailing or a friend invited them, it's
Right.
We're easy to get to, but not very well known. And for 30 years, I've been hearing we're the best kept secret.
I know. I think you might be. I don't know. The secret's getting out, though, I think.
I don't know, because I've been hearing that forever. Usually what a buyer will say is once they get here, it's like, okay, now don't tell anybody else about this area.
Yeah.
But people are always going to sell and buy homes. So
Right.
it's.
One of the trends I've seen, and that's what I think is interesting to distinguish between the South Shore and the South Coast, which obviously, well, I guess not obviously, yes, obviously by the name, they're both on the water. And that's important to people that typically go there. A lot of people are now, because the South Shore is a little bit of an easier commute, just there's public transportation, things like that. But now that's shifting a little bit, that's not as much of a necessity for everybody. Mm-hmm. We're seeing a lot of buyers that want to consider both. I know you've already seen that there's a lot of people that are like, I'd like to look in both areas.
Straddling a little
more
bit.
than we've seen before.
Right.
Which I think is really exciting.
I think so. And again, as I mentioned before about the train, I think that is going to bring another awareness, to the area. Again, because if you have to commute to the city, but you can get on the train and it will be a 90-minute train ride. But if you start working when you get on the train, because they're all equipped with what we need, right? For, Wi-Fi and all of that, you literally start working once you sit down on the train. So,
right.
Oh,
I took it the other day. I'm from Cohasset and it was amazing. Like I was, instead of getting there extremely stressed out, I got there with like an hour of work already done. And I was like, wow.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So people can do that. Their work day physically in the city might be a little bit shorter, but they're doing the same amount of work. Some of it's, on the train on the way in and some of it's on the way out.
And in theory, you can budget your time pretty well for that. Obviously trains can run behind a little bit, but, otherwise, when you're driving in from here, you can get there sometimes in just over an hour, and other times it takes 3.
Sure.
So from here, and that's
for anywhere.
Which is, I think has been one of the downsides from, people who live here who have had to go up previously. So now you can kind of budget for that time. It's going to take me about an hour and a half.
Sure. No, that's great.
Yeah.
So I'm big on opportunity, especially right now. I think the media would love everyone to believe that the real estate market is so bad and everything's so bad. And I am all about, even when things start to shift, I feel like that is when opportunity always will arise in any aspect of life or any industry. So I'd like to wrap this up with what you're most excited about. What do you feel is most exciting in terms of what's to come in the industry, or what do you feel like is an exciting opportunity that's upon us to sort of try to counter that constant negativity that we might be hearing? We've talked about so many opportunities already, but...
Yeah, I think, real estate is cyclical. We all know that. So inventory is a little bit, it is on the low side right now, but things will come on the market. I always watch like the Boston, even the South Shore market, as they start to gain more inventory. It takes a little while for it, we're usually about 30 to 60 days behind. It's
like an indicator.
Yes. So you kind of watch it there. So it will come, but I think that the exciting thing for us too is that we have so many towns. If Dartmouth is a little low in inventory, seems like Marion, Mattapoisett have a little bit more. So there's more options there. So we've got so many towns to choose from, that keeps you within, the area that it's you just have to know where to look, and there'll always be opportunities. I think you just have to take your time and be patient.
And we're excited that it's still strong. The desire to come here is still strong. They're just waiting on the right opportunity. And we're ready for them as soon as it does pop up. But I think that's what, even in spite of the interest rates and all, people still are making the move and want to make the move as soon as they can.
Right.
And I think for us as a team, we have to say what's really, one of the things for us is being now part of the Gibson Sotheby International Realty family.
Yeah.
That is really exciting for us.
That's awesome.
For me, being an independent all of my career, this is like a gift.
Yeah.
Yeah. It gives us a roadmap going forward.
And the community's excited too. We've had a lot of positive feedback.
That's great.
That it was time.
So that's true. We have so many people. They're so supportive, and of course they recognize the brand, and they think it's really a great match with us.
Yeah, we love the 3 tiers. Like the brand is so powerful, and then our local brand, Gibson, obviously as a bigger company that can offer a lot of support for our hyper-local communities, and we stress so much. So being in these communities and knowing about these communities, and of course I'm sitting here admitting I don't know a lot about this community, but I'm dying to know. I'm dying to experience it and understand it, because that's what is a part of our that's our culture. We really want to double down in these communities and figure
You'll
out.
have to come for a magical mystery tour.
I was thinking that when you said 3 hours, I was like, I might not have time for that today, but yeah.
It's so nice to feel so welcomed, just on social media. And so for anybody watching today, who may have, seen when Larry put out our full promotional photo, thank you for reaching out, and thank you for the congratulations. And it really felt good, and it made us more excited.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, thank you guys so much for being here today. I am so excited to have done this today. I'm so excited to be here. I'm definitely going to poke around and stay a little bit longer. Obviously, I'm planning to be here for the day. So, but I definitely will share contact information for all of you, if that's okay, because I'm sure that there's people on here that are going to want to reach out, get in touch, maybe take a little bit of a deeper dive, or have somebody that's interested in being out this way. So we'll include contact information here. And if you have any other questions, you can always reach out to me. But thank you so much for listening.